Welcome back to the 19th hole, everybody. Thank you guys for joining us on this lovely Tuesday evening, heading into the Charles Schwab Challenge, or as Mike and I have been affectionately calling it, the Chucky. It's a great nickname for a golf tournament. I probably should have tried harder to get a Chucky doll put into the thumbnail of this video, but I don't know how well that would work for the algorithm. But since you guys are here, you know what's going on this week. We have the Charles Schwab Challenge coming up. And before we start talking about that, before we recap the last week of golf, I want to remind you guys about the IBT Golf family. The IBT Golf family is our brand new chance to gain access to chatting with our analysts, memorabilia giveaways, as well as our full betting cards. Our free membership gains you access to our chats, memorabilia giveaways, and contests, such as our PGA One and Done contest, and our upgraded membership for $3.99 a month or $36 for the year gets you access to our full betting cards, as well as our exclusive weekly betting model. And your membership does not only gain you access to the golf side of things, you gain access to the football family, racing family, and entertainment family. So do not miss out on that. If you guys are interested in that, you can join for free at in-betweenmedia.com/chat or with the link in the episode description. And while you're down there with the subscription, make sure you guys subscribe to the 19th hole. We have our own channel over here, as well as the In Between Media channel. So do not forget to subscribe to both places for all of the lovely content going on here. But Mike, we're ready to talk about golf, aren't we? That's what we're here for.
I got takes. Where do you want to start?
I say we kick it on over to the news and recap last week before we get too deep. This was the best pun I could come up with. Wyndham, he did it. He actually did it. Wyndham Clark won a golf tournament. Who could have seen it coming? It was me. I called it last week on the episode. But going into Sunday, I didn't think Wyndham was going to win. I thought there's not – how many times can you go into a tournament on the final day, have like a 6-shot lead, gain strokes on the field, and lose? Like what happened to Siwoo Kim.
Well, he had a 6-shot lead on Friday.
Did I say the Sunday? I meant the weekend.
Well, sure. Yeah. I mean, this isn't the first time all year. I mean, Rory McIlroy had a 6-shot lead on Friday at the Masters. Like, it's almost becoming, I'm expecting, where did Cam Young raced out to a 5-shot lead recently as well. It's like, I'm kind of expecting this is happening, that I almost automatically go and take the no side of the market in the predictions market when I see a leader race out to 4, 5, 6 shots on Friday. So I guess I wasn't surprised that Siwoo backed it up. He had some really tough challengers behind him. Wyndham, well, what did he shoot to win Pebble Beach? Didn't he shoot 61, 62 on Sunday at Pebble Beach when he won the AT&T? So this is something that he has shown the ability to do. We can get into what we think about Wyndham Clark, but that guy gets the putter going and he can just annihilate some golf courses. He's a fantastic ball striker. His swing is awesome. So I guess, I don't know. I'm not surprised at the end of the day. Don't love it. Not surprised.
Yeah, I think that's what it boils down to. I mean, you got to feel for Siwoo in this aspect. He goes 64. You have a chance to tie the tournament record, end up bogeying your final hole to shoot a 60. You follow that up with a 68, which is when a 68 is your worst round of an event, you're feeling pretty good. And then on Sunday, if you told him a million out of a million times, you tell him he's got a lead on Saturday and he can go into Sunday, like he will shoot a 65 on Sunday. He is taking that a million out of a million times. You're never going to, if you are leading an event and someone promises you 6 under in the final round, I feel like you're almost always going to take that.
I think you take that on courses not called Craig Ranch.
very true. It is. This week just confirmed my opinion, which is that this is the worst course on the PGA Tour.
From the day it debuted, this because it hasn't been used for that long. Is it
2021? I think.
Yeah, 5 years ago. It was generally panned when the PGA Tour started going out there a handful of years ago. Then you have Lanny Watkins come in, and at the request of the course leadership, say, "Hey, Lanny, we'd really appreciate it if the winning score was not 30 under par." And he, quote, I believe in his interview said, "I told them, don't worry."
Don't worry. Well,
it wasn't fair, 30 under par.
It wasn't 31 under like it was for Scotty last year, but it was still 30 under par.
Yeah.
And I get it to an extent, right? Like, you're playing bent grass in Texas before it gets the chance to dry out and play. Like, I'm sure if you hold this event in August, it's going to give a completely different outcome in terms of what that winning score is, but your winning score is still going to be in the 20s, more than likely. Like, it's just a straightforward, easy course.
This is the same thing that we said about Doral, is when you have golf courses that their main defense is dependent on the weather. This is what happens. It was fairly calm, fairly warm. It had rained a bunch. The course was soft. They played preferred lies, I think 3 of the 4 rounds.
Yep.
And so literally every factor was going to set up for scoring. And I'm trying to figure out, for me, if this is even like a talker anymore. Like, should we just stop caring? Do I really care if guys shoot 30 under par? Like, I get it. Like, it's like, get these courses out of here. Let's see more of a challenge. But like, what we're learning about these players is that they are so good. They're continuing to get better. The strategy and the analytics are getting better. I don't know that there really is a world in which week in and week out on the PGA Tour, you're seeing those 5 to 10 under winning scores. Some courses, yes. Mm-hmm. But it's just not, I don't think it's the product. The only thing I have a problem with is that it, without sort of any risk or downside down the stretch, it's really hard to force drama. And I think that's why I think it's why we had a couple of snooze fests this season when things get to the back nine on Sunday, is because there's no risk of going backward.
Right. Yeah. I mean, when you look at this course and how it played this year, off the tee, it did play slightly above PGA Tour average. However, driver accuracy it mattered 0%. I mean, not quite 0%, but it averages about, 0.26, 0.27 in terms of correlations to strokes gained total. It was down at 0.18. Like, we're talking just well below how often it matters. Putting didn't really matter. Your play around the green and your approach play took a spike up. And I have no problem with courses playing the way that this course does. This course just doesn't make sense. Like, it doesn't make sense on the schedule during this time of year.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest issue that I have with a course like this is I think this course could produce some drama in August, in July. This spot on the schedule, it's going to be hard to make any course really play that hard right now. But you're telling me we can't get, I don't know, something in Arizona right now where it's been dry for a while, like Texas, there's got to be something, right? Like, make them go to the Northeast again, make them play in 30-degree weather. I was at a Cubs game on the Wednesday before the tournament. It was like 45 degrees at Wrigley. Get them back up here to Medina for this turn, for something. Just make there be something to make these players have to feel some sort of struggle. Like, a lot of these guys just walk through this tournament with no stress.
If there is one takeaway, it is how unreal these guys are at golf when there is no adversity. It is just the ability to hit these shots 180, 200, 220 yards on rope, 6 feet. The fact that that's not a challenge, that starts to put in perspective. I played a number of rounds in the last week in beautiful conditions, and I was lucky to hit a couple of shots that way. So it is really impressive. Wyndham Clark, fourth professional win. The list of courses that he's won on is comical.
Let's see. So we've got Pebble Beach. We have the U.S. Open that was at LACC. And then he's got Wells Fargo, which was at Quail Hollow.
Quail Hollow. Yeah.
Quail
Hollow, tough golf course. Pebble Beach, storied. The U.S. Open on a one-time U.S. Open venue, difficult. And then Craig Ranch.
And that's where I was a little bit skeptical on Wyndham going into the event. Like, that was one of my biggest kind of holdbacks with him, is he's a lot like Ludvig in the sense where it's like the tournaments where he should be able to just show up and, like, given his skill set, I say what you want about him. I personally don't like him. I've made it very known. I don't like Wyndham Clark. With his skill set, you should be able to put him at a place that screams he should walk away with the win, and he just he'll like T50 at it. And then he walks into a place like this, and I'm like, he's probably not going to be good. I'm still going to do it. And then he just wins the damn thing. You're just, okay, I get. First of all, he gained like 12 strokes with the putter. Absurd.
Yeah. But he does that, though. I mean, he flashes. Even a couple of weeks ago at RBC, he would gain 6 strokes. Last year had a couple of 6-stroke weeks. Like, I guess that's what you want. If you're going to shoot 60, you're going to have to gain it somewhere.
Yeah. I mean, and again, like, it's not like 30 under, a 3-stroke win at 30 under. You kind of think, oh, he probably just walked away. No, he had to go 11 under on Sunday to win this thing the way he did, which is impressive in and of itself. You're competing with Siwoo Kim, who, even though, he hasn't recorded a win in some time, has been in contention quite a bit. He third at the RBC. We saw him with, back-to-back top 3 finishes at the Phoenix Open and Farmers Insurance earlier this year, opened the season just on an absolute heater. He's been in contention multiple times over the last year or so, he had, spikes in 2025 where he was competitive, but like, this guy who hasn't won since the Sony in 2023, another, bit of a birdie fest tournament to be fair. And he goes out and he shoots a spec. If you tell almost anybody going into a PGA Tour event, like, you don't have to play, we're just going to give you 27 under par, you're almost never going to find a player turn that down. And that was a good enough for a runner-up finish, which is absurd. And you have Scotty right there at 25. Like, Scotty.
Yeah. Well, let me say this about Scotty, because I did see this take going into Sunday, and there was a few folks out there that were saying, well, if Scotty really wants to validate himself as world number 1, he's got to go out and chase down Siwoo Kim, spotting him 2 shots, like, no exceptions. And I'm like, what? If Scotty has to validate himself as number 1, he has to go chase someone down on Craig freaking Ranch. Give me a break. Like, golf is hard. He can't just, but I started to think about the difference between Tiger and Scotty, and there's all kinds of differences, but Tiger, obviously different era. Those guys came back to the pack. He had this intensity about him that exacted this like psychological effect on his competitors on Sunday. And Scotty doesn't have that. And he very specifically says, like, that's not me. And he's going to go about his business and he's going to be Scotty. And I'm not saying that's why he's not winning, but you don't see the Sunday competition wilt and fall back the way that they did when Tiger was here. And I think we've talked about how Scotty doesn't usually just go out and just chase people down. He kind of gets himself into position Friday or Saturday. And, I don't know. I thought that was just a ridiculous take. He did not need to win this golf tournament.
Yeah, no, we're all well aware that Scotty is the best player in the world. Like, you can say he's not the Scotty that he was in 2025, and I will wholeheartedly agree with you.
Yeah,
the man won 6 times last year. His worst finish this year is still in the top 25 of a golf tournament. He's got 7 finishes that are either wins or top 5s. Like, he hasn't missed a cut this year. There's no way this man isn't the best golfer on the planet. Like, if any other player were to runner up at the Masters, RBC, Cadillac, follow that up with the T14 at the PGA and a third place finish at the Byron Nelson, we'd be like, is this the guy that's going to dethrone Scotty as world number one? No, it is Scotty. It is world number one.
His last 25 starts are just unbelievable. And you're right. I mean, to say that he's fallen off means, well, he just hasn't won, but he does have, 7 top 5s this season.
Yeah. And the thing that goes with that is the way that a lot of people are talking about Scotty. You would think he hadn't won a golf tournament in 2026 when he absolutely has. He just hasn't. Like, we're not seeing. And the funniest part of that whole thing is if you look at Scotty from in 2025, he didn't win a golf tournament until the CJ Cup. Until the Byron Nelson, he did not win a golf tournament in 2025, and he won before that this year. So maybe that was his problem. He won too early.
Well, and say what you want. I know he's been invincible to all things off the course, including, being arrested and whatnot. And he uses his family life to his advantage. But he did have a second kid this year.
Yeah. And
like in the middle of the golf season. And as someone that has 3 kids, I can tell you the hardest jump other than 0 to 1, 1 to 2 is harder than anything. And so, yeah, I know he's a professional golfer. He's all the help he wants. But maybe, just maybe, as a human being, he's slightly affected this year. And that's why he only finished 2nd or 3rd.
Yeah. And guess what? I know I'm trying to say this without making it seem like Scotty doesn't want to win. Scotty is very happy to support his family with the paychecks he's getting for 2nd and 3rd place. Yeah. Any human being would be, regardless of how bad you want to win. And again, it's not like Scotty is having these 2nd and 3rd place finishes where he's blowing leads on Sunday. He's losing to guys having career weeks, career events, guys who are playing some of, stretches of golf that are the absolute best in their career. Scotty is maybe just waiting, he's waiting around at 25 under every week, it seems like. And he's like, well, one of these weeks that's going to win, because it is. This isn't going to hold, especially when, his putter had been what was carrying him for a stretch of the season, where his irons had faltered a bit. His irons are back to basically what we've seen them be the last couple of years. And his putter went away at the PGA, kind of a little bit before that at the Cadillac too. But now, just get his wedge game back, which has been his bread and butter for years. Everybody talks about how magical Scotty can be with the wedges in his hand. Once that bounces back, like, we're back to Scotty having no flaws in his game. And so we're going to see him at the top of the leaderboard sooner rather than later. I personally my wallet is happy that I believe that Wyndham could win a golf tournament this year. I still don't like Wyndham Clark, and that's not going to change even when he wins me money. I wish it was Siwoo. Jackson Suber winning would have been cool, but he was 7 strokes behind.
Yep.
You got to just give props to Wyndham Clark for dropping 11 under on the field and taking it home the way he did.
Right on.
Speaking of winning a golf tournament, and for Wyndham Clark, this win didn't change his life in any meaningful way, right? Like, I'm sure, it's what, a $1.7 million paycheck or something like that for this tournament. Like, sure, that's life-changing money for most people. For a guy like Wyndham, he's made, plenty of money in his career. Doc Redman absolutely has changed his life again on the DP World, or not DP World Tour, on the Korn Ferry Tour this year. Gets his 2nd win, all but locking up his ability to play on the PGA Tour really the rest of this season, and almost assuredly securing a card for next year through the Korn Ferry Tour. This is a guy who now twice in his career has Monday qualified into tournaments that really have changed his life and gotten him his spots and his status on tour. This is a guy who just not that long ago in 2025 took a mental health break from the game of golf. Traveling and playing golf for him was getting to the point where it was not enjoyable for him. He was losing money. He wasn't competing in any meaningful way. I mean, this is a guy who missed 5 straight cuts on the Korn Ferry Tour last year. After this is a guy who was a regular on the PGA Tour in 2023, lost that status, had Korn Ferry Tour status in 2024, only gained status in 2025, essentially through, I think it was a T34 finish at Q School for the PGA Tour, which gained him some status on the Korn Ferry Tour for this year. Monday queued into an event, put up a good performance, and the guy goes out and wins 2 golf tournaments. And again, like all but secures his spot on the PGA Tour next year and gains a ton of starts this year to the point where he's basically, if what I read was correct, he can play basically everything but I believe signature events rest of the way. And he can still get invites into some of the other events as well. Like the man has changed his life.
Sure has. The second dramatic eagle putt that Doc Redman has made in his career that I remember back in 2017 when he won the U.S. Amateur. He beat Doug Gim, and they went, I believe they went to a 37th hole playoff. Yep. But he made like a 60-foot putt from the back edge of the green on 17 to get himself in position to do that. And so I don't know, sometimes he just bottles some of those things up, and he's standing over a 40-footer here in Knoxville, and he rolls it in to win. And, you talked a little bit about where he was mentally. I know he's had a kid since then. We talked about that with Scotty, but like he was very open after the event about just the perspective of grinding through low confidence periods on his career and being away from his family and just really coming to terms with the sacrifice. And so when you got a guy calling his wife in tears on the phone after winning a Korn Ferry event, kind of knowing what's ahead, I mean, that's why we watch this stuff. Betting right aside, this is why as golfers, the dream is always out there that you're one good round, one good hole away from something better at any level. So it's really cool to see that.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it when he won in Chile earlier this year, just like how cool of a story it was, like knowing what he's gone through in his career, and then to watch him follow that up with a win. He had a couple, bad starts after that, and then in Tulum in April, T13 at the Colonial Life Charity Classic in, just a couple weeks ago, a T7 finish there, and then wins the Visit Knoxville Open. Again, he's now second on the Korn Ferry Tour points list behind Ian Holt, the only other two-time winner on the Korn Ferry Tour this year. But I mean, like I said, the guy is all but assured he will be on the PGA Tour next season, especially when you consider, like, we hype up guys like Blades Brown, right? Which is an awesome story. The dude's not even 19 years old yet and has earned special status on the PGA Tour this year. There's a lot of discourse about whether or not it's actually better for him to just kind of ignore that and just play out the Korn Ferry Tour, get his status that way. That's something we could do a whole episode on that if you want to go into all of the nooks and crannies there. But for a guy like Doc Redman, for a guy like Ian Holt, who we talked about earlier this year, like, these are guys who are now putting themselves in position to set their family up for generational success, which is why these guys play this game at the end of the day. Like, yes, they love the game of golf. Yes, they love winning, but this is a career for these guys, especially anybody who's been like a Doc Redman, like an Ian Holt, who has grinded through these mini tours and these feeder tours to get to the statuses that they have today. And to, it goes to show you, like you said, golf is a sport, much like every other, where any given day you can put together the best performance of your life and change your future for the better, which is just an awesome thing to see. With that being said, let's head on over to talk about the Charles Schwab Challenge and see if anybody will change their life over at Colonial. Colonial Country Club. I found the cheesiest version of their logo that I absolutely could for the screen. You are welcome, all you visual viewers there. But Mike, your breakdowns of the courses are anything but cheesy. So tell the people about Colonial Country Club.
Well, first of all, I appreciate the logo. There is so much logo drama going on around the Twin Cities country clubs right now. I'm curious to see what the backlash has been on this one at Colonial here. My biggest problem with about the Colonial stop on tour is not really a problem with the Colonial. It's a problem with the Memorial. The Memorial is not played on Memorial Day weekend, nor the weekend after. And this confused me for probably most of my childhood. And so every time we get to the Colonial, I'm like, if the Memorial wasn't last weekend, it should be this weekend. And I'm always remembering, nope, it's the Colonial and then the Memorial.
Can we talk about the missed marketing opportunity, first of all, to have a tournament go over Memorial Day weekend and not have it played, not have the final round played on Memorial Day?
It's a weird day. It's like you get to the end, you're just like, it feels like a Sunday, but it's not a Sunday, especially for golf fans. You feel like you should be tuning into something by 4 o'clock. You should be watching guys coming down the stretch, and you're not.
Yeah, it felt like I got 2 Sundays. It felt like today was a Monday at work, and I was not a fan of it. So I'm with you. Can we start a petition? All listeners of the 19th hole, I guarantee will sign it. But we need to get the Memorial played on Memorial Day.
Something like that. Roll-App will figure it out. I'm sure he's got stuff up his sleeve. But let's save that for a couple of weeks. We will talk about the Chucky at Colonial Country Club here in Fort Worth, Texas. This is the longest running venue, or I should say non-major venue outside of Augusta. This is number 2 on the PGA. So certainly a lot of history here has gone through
80th anniversary, 80th, right?
Yes, it is 80th. Yes. So it's gone through dozens of name changes. We've been with the Charles Schwab Challenge here for several years. This is a par 70, 7,200, approaching 7,300 yards. Actually added nearly 100 yards of length following a 2024 Gil Hanse renovation. We just came from Craig Ranch, where it's pretty much wide open, hit it as far as you can, shoot 30 under. We kind of get the opposite of that here, staying in the Dallas, Fort Worth area. This is a less than driver second shot positional golf course. It's not a Pete Dye course, but it kind of plays like that. You have some corridors. There's penalties for missing the fairways. You really need to get yourself in position to get to what frankly are fairly small greens, about 5,000 square feet on average. They are bent grass. We did see what happens to bent grass here in May, but this tournament's been played in May in Texas forever. And so it's really not about the speed or softness of the greens. Although with Hanse coming in, he did change up some of the green complexes, brought in some more firmness, but then he also extended the tightly mown runoffs. So in some of the other courses we previewed this year that put a premium on short grass scrambling, that is now a statistic that is going to be a little more important. We'll talk about the stat models following the Hanse renovation over the last 2 years. They did have, the other thing Gil did was a lot of the ways we talked about the Donald Ross restorations, he's come in and really tried to reestablish the historic architecture of the golf course. So he's moved some greens, gone through old irrigation maps, and tried to reground this in more of a natural experience, something that akin to what was when the course was first built in the 30s. And so at the end of the day, I think we get what we asked for. We don't want a 30 under winner. So we'll probably get something that is in the mid-teens, 15, 16 under, and you'll get back to having some more pure flushers of the golf balls that are going to be in the mix. And then hopefully a couple of guys that are good around the greens. I definitely love spike putting this week. We saw it work out well for Wyndham last week, but I do think we're a little bit back to what we'd like to see, a golf course fight back a little bit here at Colonial.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you said, these fairways are the 6th narrowest on tour. These are the 5th smallest average greens on tour. The greens are going to play faster, especially than we saw last week in terms of just the stimp meter. The rough is going to be more penal. But again, this is
probably the toughest like non-bluegrass rough golf course that you're going to see all year.
Yeah, Justin Rose specifically, he was talking about it, and he basically said you're hitting into tiny greens off of rough that is going to give you a ton of flyers. Like you're going to sail greens like it's nothing at this venue.
Yeah. Well, it's 3-inch Bermuda. So, right. So if you're playing in Florida and you get the Bermuda rough, you're talking 2 inches max. The ball typically is just going to sit up. But here, you're right, Rose, you're going to get some flyers. You're also going to get balls that go straight to the bottom of that clumpy Bermuda, and you're going to be hacking that stuff out. So rough play is definitely going to be something to look at. I know we'll go through specifically what's in our models, but I appreciate that about this golf course, that you are really going to test players. And this is not like a distance from edge of fairway thing. Like if the ball runs out of the fairway, you are potentially screwed.
Yeah, the closest thing. So speaking on the stat models, what I kind of went with this week to account for that, I went with green and regulation percentage out of the rough. It was probably the best indicator that I could give. My problem with distance from edge of fairway this week was just the fairways are so narrow that 3 inches off the fairway and 6 yards off the fairway is not that different. And it's different in terms of, last week, those six yards would have mattered when we were looking at 30 fairways that were playing 36.5 yards wide on average. We're looking at like 29-yard fairways here. And it's one of the hardest courses historically to gain strokes off the tee, specifically if you're not accurate off the tee. And that's basically, I was like, well, if half the field is going to be in the rough half the time, I don't really care how far in the rough they are. I care if they can get it to these tiny greens from the rough. And especially with what we can do with the rabbit hole over at BetSperts, we can select small greens, rough, that's hard to get out of. Bermuda rough specifically, if you want to go all the way down the rabbit hole, hence the name, you can get very precise with what you're looking for here. So rough green and regulation percentage is what the main thing I looked at. Off the tee, just mixed club, good drives gained. Really, like you said, it's a positional, it's a second shot course. You're not going to see as many drivers off the tee. You can try and Bryson your way around this course. It's probably not going to work well, especially if you're like Bryson, can't spin your wedges to save your life. But that's a different story for another day. But then it was really just a pretty heavy focus on iron play. I've got ball striking, I've got regular green and regulation percentage, approach play really under 200 yards. We're going to see historically 80% of approach shots at this course have come from less than 200 yards away.
Yeah, it's not long. I mean, like I said, it's under 7,300 yards. So I definitely was also pretty over-indexed on short iron play. You're going to see a lot of that this week. The other thing too is this is like a pure Texas golf course. Like it generally is going to play windy, and you got guys that can sort of work the ball around this place. So I am looking for guys with Texas strength. And then if I'm looking at course history, I'm only taking the last 2 years. I think we have to be really careful about going back 5-6 years on places that fundamentally are playing different than they have been.
Yeah, I think you have some great examples of players where leaning too heavily on the course history here can get you into trouble. Like you can look and say, oh, Chris Kirk is one here. Maybe I like Chris Kirk this week. This course is technically one of the 15 most predictive courses on the PGA Tour. And then you're like, yeah, Chris Kirk did win here not that long ago. Oh, he's missed the last 3 cuts. Never mind. Oh, Emiliano Grillo did win here. Yeah, then he followed it up with a 64th. Like it can vary so heavily year to year. Ben Griffin missed the cut 2 years ago, won here last year. Davis Riley won here 2 years ago, missed the cut last year and the year before his win. So maybe I should be looking at guys who missed cuts last year. I don't know. But yeah, it's even though like on paper it's a predictive course, it not really in terms of upside. It tends to just be, yeah, if you miss the cut here, you're pretty likely to miss the cut because it probably just means your game doesn't necessarily fit this course. And if your game fits this course, it doesn't necessarily mean you can win here.
Yeah. I mean, again, when we've gone through renovations, clearly you get a couple examples where people have struggled recently where they had success before. I would just say be careful in modeling that, because the course is fundamentally different than 2 years ago.
Yeah. And then I like what you added to there and just historical success in the state of Texas. I mean, we talked about it with Bezadenhout. Obviously, it didn't work out in our favor. Going into the Byron Nelson, one of the better players in the state of Texas. However, this event, he's one of the more consistent players here. His last 4 finishes at this event have been between T15 and T21. So again, just because your stats fit the course, it doesn't necessarily mean you can still win here. Especially when you consider the field and everything else that goes into this event. So with that being said, let's head on over to talk about the field and get started on these play cards for the week. Starting off with the books this week and kind of what the field looks like as a whole, this event is like weirdly stronger than the Byron Nelson, but also like kind of weaker at the same time.
It depends on what level of the book you're in or where you're at on the salary board with daily fantasy. There are guys that are cheaper this week than they were last week, and this is, I would say, you think this field is stronger. I think it might actually be a little bit worse.
Yeah, it's one of those fields that could go either way. Like, yes, we have no Scotty this week. There's also no Jordan Spieth this week, who historically has been, a big hometown guy at this event. Both of them have basically just flat out said, like, where this event falls in the schedule, it doesn't make sense to play in it anymore.
Scotty had to make room for the 3M. So if this is what gets sacrificed, I'm all in.
He's all in. But I mean, you still have, like, on paper, it was basically last week, it was like Siwoo, Spieth, Scotty in the top 50. Like this week, you have 7 guys in the top 20 who are in the field, more guys in the top 50 who are in the field. So like it's a little bit top heavier, or I should say less top heavy in terms of Scotty. The bottom end of the field is just as meh. Like, don't get me wrong, I love Kevin Kisner. He makes great content. Kevin Kisner in a field in 2026 should not be super, super notable. But looking at this field as a whole, there's not too many guys that are over interesting. But, looking as we go down the odds boards here, there's obviously, we don't have a Scotty driving up the top of the board. Last week, betting on Scotty was like betting on 95 other guys to top 20 in most tournaments. We actually have, Ludvig as the betting favorite here, right around 10-1 in most books. It's probably fair on paper.
Fair on paper. Should we just jump right? I don't know where we're starting, but with Ludvig,
let's jump in. Ludvig 10-1.
This is probably your guy, because I think my guy's next and twice the value. Ludvig has shown us nothing other than being a great on paper player.
Yep.
So I can't stomach paying this price for a guy that hasn't backed it up.
And that's exactly where I'm at with Ludvig. Is like, this is my ultimatum for Ludvig. Like, dude's got to win, or I'm probably going to be off. I don't want to say forever, but
does winning the Chucky help him though? Because he's
got to win something.
Yeah, but all he's going to do is win this golf tournament. Everyone's going to come back. Well, he should have won that golf tournament. He should have won it. So why? But I don't know. I won't be betting on him this week, because there's no upside to him. I won't make a lot of money. He's not going to get a lot of star power out of it, and frankly, he's not going to do it anyways.
Maybe if he wins, we can stop. We need to the golf media space as a whole needs to stop acting like Ludvig is Blades Brown. Like, we're not talking about an 18-year-old on the PGA Tour. The dude's almost 27 years old, has been a successful golfer for quite some time. But, like, the dude's won the RSM and he's won the Genesis. And that's it.
Yeah.
Like, maybe Ludvig's cap in his career is being a guy who's going to consistently find his way into top fives in tournaments. Like, there's no denying what he has done this year has been very solid. Like I was saying, for a lot of guys, if we were talking about a string of finishes like this, we'd be extremely happy. The guy started off the season poorly, withdrew from the Amex, miscut at the Farmers, and then T37 at Pebble, T20, a string of T5 or better finishes, 21st at the Masters, 2 top fives and a top 10 since. But it's just like for Ludvig, we've like media as a whole has kind of propped him up as like this wonderkind, and he's just a very good player. Like, yes, we can like how quick he plays golf. Yes, we can love the golf swing. Yes, we can love X, Y, and Z. But like, he's got to win. Like, you can't have the number one pop up in my model 4 different times for you and not win.
Yeah.
Like, he's got to. I'm not going to be. This is one where like I'm already in for a unit. If at this point, I have admittedly probably tried to talk myself out of Ludvig. I'm still going to be in for DFS purposes. But like, I wouldn't be betting the house on Ludvig to take this one home, precisely because what you said, you can get Russell Henley at 20 to 1.
Exactly. And if you're looking for a return here, I mean, Russell is nearly the best off the tee accuracy guy in the field. He's nearly the best wind player, and he's nearly the best short iron player in the field. All things that we've already talked about as being critical to success here. He's second in bogey avoidance, and he's first in short grass scrambling. Don't forget, his like, we think of Russell as being like a highly accurate straight ball player. His top skill is around the green play. Mm-hmm. And with small greens, and now adjusted for having more short grass runoffs, you're going to have a lot of chip shots. The green regulation percentage here is so low, you're going to have a lot of shots around the green. And so I just like, this is a perfect type of golf course for Russell. I know we had a miscut at the PGA, and honestly, he's kind of struggled with his irons the last handful of weeks anyways, but I will take that regressing or coming back to the mean. And if he has just a slightly better week on approach, just again, like if he could be 1 or 2 strokes positive, which is better than what he has been, the first half of the season, he was gaining 4 to 6 strokes around. So right, if we get back to what Russell's really good at, I think 20 to 1 is a great spot when we just talked about so much uncertainty with Ludvig at half the price.
Well, and like we talked about with those approaches coming from such a short distance, like you mentioned his skill with short irons and, you know, full wedges or anything of that aspect, even as he struggled with his irons of late, this year, he's 18th in approach proximity from 100 to 150, 29th from 150 to 200. Like, yes, Russell Henley's not going to be the most successful guy in a long iron contest. I think just about anybody, Russell himself would probably admit that to you. But one of the other stats that I haven't really talked about yet that has a very high correlation with success at this event is double bogey avoidance. This is a course where double bogey comes into play more frequently than you would probably expect. He is 6th in the field in double bogey avoidance. The man is not going to make big numbers. It's not the way his game works. And at an event where a lot of players are going to find themselves making big numbers, a lot of guys I even like, and we'll talk about later on this episode, that's their biggest struggle comparatively, is that they will make they're not afraid of big numbers. Yeah, they're not as afraid of big numbers as they should be, is probably the better way to describe it. But Henley, this is a Russell Henley golf course to a T.
Yep.
A guy that we are both in on this week, and maybe a little bit out of spite that I picked the all orange picture, but Rickie at 25 to 1. Is that a better value than Henley? I don't think so. But
actually, yeah, I think Russell, if in this range, I think Russell is the better play. You're not giving up that much to go from Fowler down to Henley. But I do like Rickie a lot this week, and we've liked him. I mean, he's come back onto the scene the second half or the kind of the second quarter here. We really liked him at the PGA. We kind of liked him the week before at the Truist. I think Rickie still got the hot hand here. And if you look back at his finish at the PGA, I think he finished 60th. A lot of his struggle that week was on the greens, and you got to be somewhat forgivable with guys struggling on the greens at Aronimik, which are absolutely insane surfaces. And yeah, if he loses a few strokes there, okay, we get it, Rickie. But he's been really good this year. I have Rickie, 4 straight made cuts, a top 10, a top 20. He's playing the best golf really in the last handful of years. I think you could go back to Rickie. I like Russell better, but you can go back to Rickie.
Yeah, the things about Rickie that's giving me kind of some maybe why I'm leaning into Rickie a little bit more personally. The recent play has been extremely strong, as you mentioned. Outside of that poor, relatively poor performance at the PGA, I mean, he still made the cut at a major.
Made the cut and the hardest cut to make, so he was fine.
Yeah, exactly. He had 3 top 10 finishes before that, including a runner-up finish and a 3rd place finish. So he's entering 3rd in strokes gained total over the last 16th rounds. And just nothing really stands out as a big negative about him on paper. Maybe his green and regulation percentage could be a little bit better. It's about field average. But he's 5th over the last 36 rounds putting on bent grass greens. After what we saw out of Wyndham, I'm going to take a guy who can roll the rock on bent and just hope that I'm not, don't get me wrong, I'm not hoping for 12 strokes on the green out of Rickie Fowler this week. I would love it, but I'm not thinking that's going to happen. But again, much like Henley, just again, as the odds suggest, a little bit farther of a stretch, really doesn't have any major holes for this venue on paper. The driver could be a little bit more accurate. Sure, he could score a little bit more. He could avoid bogeys a little bit more. But you're going to be saying that about 90% of this field, as we mentioned.
Exactly.
JJ Spaun's the highest ranked guy in the field. Another guy who I think on paper makes a lot of sense this week. He's just kind of the inverse of Rickie in that bent grass is his worst putting surface and has been for his entire career. I don't think JJ can spike on bent the way that Rickie can. And why would I pay what I have to? Why would I pay 30 to 1 for JJ Spaun? Like do it for Alex Smalley at 35 to 1.
I love Smalley this week.
Another guy who just makes sense. This happened with me last year with Smalley, where he's starting to put together these stretches that show you how good of a player he can be. We saw it at the beginning of last season where he rattled off 6 top 20 finishes in 7 starts. And we're seeing it again right now, starting with his T21 at the Texas Children's Houston's Open, followed that up with a 14th at Valero, runner-up in the team event at the Zurich, and then a T7, T17, and a runner-up at the PGA Championship. Like, everything is peaking at the right time for Smalley. 2nd in the field in strokes gained total over his last 16, 11th in ball striking, 4th in birdie or better percentage over that span. Like, again, a guy just doesn't really have any major holes in his game, has good performances in the buckets that we're looking for. He's 26th in the field out of the rough in terms of green and regulation percentage. So, even if he does miss some of these fairways, he's got the skill set to get it on there. And yes, like, not the best bent grass putter by any means, but a guy who specifically over the last 12 months, this has been his best putting surface, where he's gaining nearly 3/4 of a stroke around on bent grass greens. So I'm going to take the shot here. I'm going to trust that the irons bounce back a little bit over his last 8 rounds. He's actually just been dead neutral in terms of the irons, but this is also a guy who can send it off the tee very accurately as well. So he's going to give himself really good scoring positions. And I think he's just generally set up for success at this venue. And at this price, like, don't get me wrong, most events you'd see Alex Smalley at 35 to 1 and laugh. This time I'm in. Like, this is an event where 35 to 1 for Alex Smalley makes sense.
Yeah, I think he's hitting the ball too good and has too much sort of resilience in tough conditions to not compete here. There are a couple of things that I think are a few red flags we talked about, around the green play, short grass, maybe a spot. some bent grass concerns. It just, I think the iron play for him has been so good lately, and he's built some resolve through this stretch here that I think he absolutely can compete.
Absolutely. See, next up, we got Gary Woodland at 49-1. I'm going to be fully transparent with you. I did not expect to see Woodland's name pop up as high as it did in my model. I'm still not sure how I feel about it, but let me make the argument that my model kind of made for me. Over the last 24 rounds, third in ball striking, fourth in green and regulation percentage, 14th in good drive percentage, 8th birdies are better, 16th bogey avoidance, 8th green and regulation percentage out of the rough. There's things to like.
Yeah, this doesn't seem, I mean, a place where you don't need a ton of distance and you don't need a ton of ball speed. I was also surprised. I'm kind of going through some of my reading the green DFS notes here on who said what about Gary Woodland. He did finish 11th here last year and has another top 10 before that. It goes further back, so obviously slightly different golf course. So I do think that his course history here probably is propping him up a bit in the model, depending on how you use that. But you gotta be afraid of guys that are kind of playing with house money. And he's got nothing to lose to go out and really try to push it this week, because he's already probably exceeded far more than what he's expected to this year.
Yeah. And like we said, there's holes in the profile, right? Bent is his worst putting surface, flat out. Like over the last 12 months, it's flat out his worst. Weirdly, as we mentioned, for a guy who doesn't really, like on paper, it doesn't necessarily make sense to be as good as he is when courses don't really call for his speed and his distance. He's still well above average in terms of strokes gained on short courses and average courses. It's one of those things where, like, I would prefer to see this number start with a 5 before I really start to consider it. But it's close enough where, like, I feel like I'd kind of be doing a disservice if I didn't bring up his number here, because it has fallen. He opened at 41 and he's down to 49. So there's a chance that this gets even into a little bit more of a favorable range, in a range of players where I don't necessarily like anybody. Like, you look at the other guys in this range, it's Cody, who, again, absolutely sends it with the driver, has shown spike weeks with the irons, but can't really trust it. Sung Jae, still don't really know what Sung Jae I'm getting every week. Hisatsune, really don't know which version of him I'm getting every week. Thor, consider me out pretty much permanently. And then, like, Poston, who just no.
Well, here I did find the stat that I think confirms Woodland in this range, and it's that he is third in the field in strokes gained Texas.
There we go. All right, I'm back in. If I'm in on Woodland, I'm not calling this a multi-unit play by any means, but it's certainly one where it was like, okay, he popped in the model. Why am I seeing this name so high? And then you look into it and you're like, all right, it does actually kind of work here. But he needs to have a spike week with the putter. And if he can, then Gary Woodland round 2, and I go chug beers in my backyard. I don't know. Let's see. What do we got next? We got, let's make sure we do this in order. For you, Davis Thompson, 62-1.
Yeah, I really like Davis was a guy that was popping in my model this week. I think I have him second overall, which obviously is getting keyed on a few things since he hasn't played all the premier PGA Tour events recently. But he has that similar profile to both Henley and Fowler, in the sense that you are getting a fairly accurate driver who plays great short irons and is really good in the wind. Also rolling in that he's got him second in the field in bogey avoidance. I mean, it's really just building the same profile and then trying to go a little deeper down the board to get some value. He finished top 20 here 2 years ago, and he does have 3 top 20s in his last 4 events on season. Yes, he did miss the cut at the CJ Cup, but he was 14th at the Valero, 6th at the team event Zurich, and 13th at the Myrtle Beach. And so he's been back, and he's mostly terrible putter this year. And I think that's where most of his struggles has come from. But I like his ball striking profile. And like you said, you're getting down to this 50 to 1, 60 to 1 range.
It's just
we're going to have to take on some. Yeah, it's just gross. I mean, we're in a you already called it a top heavy field. So when you go below Gary Woodland, you're going to be scratching for some things. And I think Davis Thompson has generally the right profile to play well here.
Yeah, absolutely. I fully agree. He's a guy that I just don't find myself picking often, whether it's DFS or whether it's betting.
I mean, what's funny is I'm just thinking back. So he won at John Deere a couple years ago, right? I think he won.
Yep.
And I can remember, I think it was Trevor Immelman saying, drawing the comparisons to Scotty Scheffler. They're both 6'4". They both rock the swoosh, right? They kind of play this, and then, obviously like extreme divergence of these two players. But, he's got a couple of wins on tour, and he's got the experience. This is probably a field that he could excel at.
Yeah,
I'm excited for the next.
Absolutely, the type of field where I'm like, all right, Davis Thompson, you can do so much worse.
Exactly. Let's do worse. Let's go deeper. Let's do worse.
Let's do it. Tom Hoge, 155 to 1.
Well, part of my contractual agreement with In Between Media here is that I can only mention Tom Hoge once a month. And I think this is going to be my one. And the May is running out here, so I'll be able to flip it right around into June. But Tom, this number is so incredibly disrespectful. I'm sorry. He finished 6th last week at the CJ Cup, 155 to 1 in a bad field. Tom Hoge went to college 5 minutes from Colonial at TCU.
I was going to say he's a TCU boy. He's a Horned Frog.
Yeah, went to school 5 minutes from here. And I swear every single year at this golf course, I make some reason to back Tom Hoge, and he's just not played well here. He just hasn't.
He cannot putt here.
But I believe he's missed four of his last 6 cuts here. Like, it's really gross. But Tom does all the things right, other than the fact that that's always going to be his downfall, is he can't putt. And that's growing up on these Fargo munis that, you just don't know what kind of conditions you're going to get in northern Minnesota. Well, that's North Dakota, but that whole area. But he hits the ball incredibly well. When he gets his irons rolling, he flies up the leaderboard. This is a guy that, tied the course record at Sawgrass, smoking it around the field there at the Players Championship a couple of years ago. So I think I can't believe 155 to 1 for Tom Hoge, PGA Tour winner, who's playing good golf right now in a really bad field. His DraftKings price actually went down this week.
Yeah.
So this is almost a hammer play at 16. I think he's 6,900. I don't know. There are so many worse options 150 to 1 in this field.
I'm going to get worse with you. So, you want Hayden Springer 260 to 1. Hear me out. My model liked him last week, and he missed the cut. Okay, I'll admit it. How often is -5 not getting you through the cut of a PGA tournament?
That if there is one thing about 30, I'm fine with 30 under winners, but I hate the fact that you have to shoot 67 to make a cut in some of these events.
It's like the joke that Max Homa made on Twitter a couple of years ago. It was last year at the Sony, where he went like 66 every round and finished outside the top 25 in the event. It was like 41st. It's like that's where I have the problem with these birdie fests sometimes. But Springer's profile realistically does line up with what we're looking for here. It lined up last week. It's lining up again this week. But yes, it's got its holes. He's 271. Don't be surprised about that. 52nd in ball striking. So obviously still above field average. However, where I'm getting excited about Springer's profile here, 11th in green and regulation percentage, 3rd in good drive percentage, 4th birdies are better, 6th bogey avoidance, and then really just no other major flaws in the game. Even rough, like I said, with his ball striking, 52nd in the field, still ranks above field average in that aspect. Green and regulation percentage out of the rough, he's 57th, still again above field average in terms of that. So there's just if there's no reason that Tom Hoge should be 155-1, there's no reason that Hayden Springer should be 260-1. Except, I mean, you can ignore that Hayden Springer's not a PGA Tour winner. Tom Hoge is. There's obviously reasons. Don't get me wrong. I'm well aware. But
well, I mean, I have him, I don't know, 55th in approach, 73rd in win play, 90th in course history. Actually, it's kind of funny about Hayden Springer. I think this was going into Zurich, where did he finish at the Zurich? Second. Would you play with Alex Smalley? Is that right?
Yep.
That the reason I didn't play Smalley Springer, and I remember reading I remember reading the article on Wednesday night. The reason I didn't play Smalley Springer at the Zurich, despite loving Smalley, was you don't play teams if they have one really terrible player. It was like Ron Kloss or someone was very specifically like, fade these guys because Hayden Springer is half of it. And I think it certainly missed out on those. Clearly, there's something there that is at least getting him in the conversation. I mean, like you said, the bogey avoidance numbers are really good. I don't know. Hayden Springer. I mean, we're in the 260 range, so sure.
Yeah, I'm throwing $2 to try and I don't know, buy a hobby box of football cards or something. We're in house money range if anything hits, and I'm not expecting it to by any means, but like there's so many worse profiles that pay out so much worse if it did work out in our favor. And as we always talk about, Keith especially likes to bring this up. Like if you like a guy at this range in the 260 range, if I think that Hayden Springer can have a good event here, he's paying 9-1 on FanDuel to top 20. He's paying 22-1 to top 10. He's paying 50-1 to top 5. Like
you can pay for that outright bet just in all these placements. I mean, I just go ahead and ladder these guys. Absolutely. That's where the value is.
Yeah. There's so much opportunity to still make money, even if Hayden Springer doesn't win the event, which, as we'll all admit, is a very unlikely outcome. If somebody's trying to tell you that a 260-1 winner is a likely outcome for an event, maybe find a new source of information. I don't know. But what I do know is that is all that we have for you guys this week, except it's not, because of our sponsors over at Fantasy Spin.
Spin, pick, win.
Thanks to our friends over at Fantasy Spin, we are going to go ahead and draft a lineup for you guys this week. For those of you who have not yet used Fantasy Spin, they are a different kind of daily fantasy experience. They let you spin your lineup, make your picks, and compete in tournaments based off of the real player performance. And much like a slot machine, you can hit the jackpot. It's a unique game that combines the skill of drafting a DFS lineup with a captivating gamified experience. You can enter contests and spin the lineups for a chance to win big. Whether you are playing for free or for cash, Fantasy Spin has you covered. If you guys are interested in Fantasy Spin, check out the link in the episode description and use promo code IBT Golf. And if you deposit at least $10 and play at least one tournament, you will get $30 in bonus play. It directly supports the program. It supports Fantasy Spin, and we can keep making some noise for the rest of the season. But Mike, here we go. We're going to go ahead and rip my first lineup. Normally, by the time we're doing these, it's my last lineup in the tournament. This time,
mine are in. So I want to talk about that when we get done here, real quick.
Absolutely,
I would pass on this one.
Yep, skipping all the way through. Do I go with Tom Hoge just to support my guy? I wouldn't either. Rickie Castillo is the next is the highest ranked player here, but we've got 8 spins and 4 locks. Good to roll on through some of those.
Yeah, Gerard's the only guy that I was considering picking up in spots, but probably not worth locking yet.
Yeah, not this early. Let's see. Michael Kim, I don't hate Yella Miraju. I like this is a lineup where like I don't really hate it. Except for Højgaard, I'm probably
the two guys that I like here, Kim and Yella Miraju. I think I have exposure to both of them.
Let's at least lock in Yella.
Yeah.
We've still got spins to play with. We've got locks to play with. Thor, Nyholm.
This is honestly 4 spins in. This is really brutal.
Yeah, I'm kind of getting cooked. I'm gonna lock Thor because as much as I am a noted Michael Thorbjornsen hater,
can always unlock him.
I need something. Cashmere Keith. I'm just taking it. Do I agree with the projection that's on here of him 4th highest projected player in the field?
Absolutely not.
No, but based off the rest of the players in the spin, I'm not taking my chances on Eric Van Rooyen, Steven Yeager, or Webb Simpson. So we can always, again, like you said, we can unlock if something starts coming our way. Now, Jackson Suber is here. Jackson Suber is the number 1 ranked player in my model this week. Even in my article, I said, take that with a grain of salt, and I am going to take that with a grain of salt and use a spin here. Okay, we got JT.
Go. Yep. Gonna have to.
And now I kind of want to unlock Thor.
How many spins you got left?
2.
This is just showing up perfectly into my little nugget here.
All right, we're gonna, you know what? For content, we're gonna unlock Thor. Give me somebody, please. Nope. All right.
So you got 1 spin left, and you got 2 spaces. You're stuck with whoever the last 2 guys are.
Yep, whoever I get is who I get. Please, Michael Kim, Billy. It could be. I've had way worse final spins.
Yeah. So let's talk about this. I put together a lineup as I was cruising through this of 4 guys that I really liked this week: Spaun, JT, Smalley, and Yellow Miraju. And I decided, and I can't remember who I had 1 spin away, but I had the grace of getting Kevin Kisner and a guy M. Rosso. Those are my last 2. Marcelo Rosso. JT, Smalley, Yella, Spaun. 4 guys that can absolutely win this golf tournament. I was super stoked to get to that point, and then I throw in Kisner and Rosso.
To be fair, I've had some absolutely phenomenal regular DFS lineups that I've had to throw in a couple $6,000 names just to get the lineup submitted. It happens.
Yeah,
but hey,
that's why fantasy spin is fun. Like, it's
exactly.
Just,
yep.
You get.
Quick show through here just for the people, anybody watching. So they have MLB, NHL, PGA, NBA, NASCAR, NFL will be there as well during football season. So you've got plenty of tournaments to enter. You've got the main event. You've got the one-on-one. You have the 1v1 contests. And these are just what you typically see on your week-to-week basis. But when it comes to the majors, there are, different events that get scattered out into the field as well. The prize pools go up, obviously in correlation with that as well. So there's a ton to do on Fantasy Alarm, or not on Fantasy Alarm, on Fantasy Spin. So again, make sure you use promo code IBT, deposit IBT Golf, and deposit at least $10 and play at least 1 tournament to get $30 in bonus play. Have some fun, spin some lineups. But that is it for Mike and I this week. We all truly appreciate you guys tuning in. Again, make sure to check out the IBT Golf family. Link to that is in the episode description. But for myself, for Mike Kosiek, we are out, and we will see you all next week for our next tee time.